Where in the Folk is not and should not be viewed as a news source. Any names, places, or likenesses mentioned are purely fictional, and any information discussed is purely speculative. Guest opinions are their own and do not reflect those of anyone else. Where in the Folk is not responsible for content accuracy of any stories that are told or what people do with these stories. This show is vulgar, sometimes graphic, and due to its content, it should not be viewed by anyone actually.
Welcome to another episode. I hope everybody had a great week. It's been an awesome week for me. I hope it's been good for you. And Merry Christmas coming up here pretty soon. I don't know if we'll be on another time before Christmas, will we?
Yeah, one more.
Yeah,
One more.
I can't remember when Christmas.
I'll probably still do the demented Santa Claus intro. At least until the New Year's.
I love that. That made me happy.
It's easy.
I'm really stoked about it too. To everybody that's ordering stuff for Christmas, we was just talking about this. You need to get your shit together and make sure our stuff gets here on time. That's just a personal message. That's kind of like it irks me kind of like when McDonald's runs out of hot mustard sauce. Mm-hmm. It said it'd be here by Friday the 13th. Today's Friday the 13th, 7 o'clock. Not on my fucking doorstep. I'm pissed off.
Understandable.
They hire people in the street clothes to deliver stuff now. How can they not get enough people to deliver my stuff on time? Another thing that makes me really fucking mad, I ordered something off eBay that's coming from where I live in London, Kentucky, and has went to like North Carolina and London, Kentucky. I could just go to the person's house and got it.
Yeah, that's messed up.
I don't understand postal routes. If you do, go ahead and send us an email at WITF.com and explain those to me so that I'll be less upset. So,
well, I will tell you, as somebody who works with the Postal Service daily, that I am happy that I can tell somebody, well, we released it to the post office, so it's out of our hands now.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yep.
Well, I did want to get us all in the Christmas spirit, considering how it's only a couple of weeks away.
I'm having a feeling though that we've talked about this not long ago, but go for it.
Oh, I'm sure I have mentioned it. I'm sure because whenever I was talking about this, I was enraged. So, but it's the perfect season for it. So the Friday feel good that I brought this week is to let everybody know that the Christmas that we know today was invented by Coca-Cola. And what I mean by that is that in 1931, Coca-Cola launched a groundbreaking advertising campaign that solidified the modern depiction of Santa Claus. And it also had a super long-lasting, obviously, cultural impact. So Coke had a problem that they were not selling pop during the wintertime. People associated it as a summer drink, so sales would slump in the winter. So in the year 1931, they hired illustrator Haddon Sundblom, who reimagined Santa Claus as a cheerful, plump, and grandfatherly figure dressed in a bright red suit trimmed with white fur. He wasn't the first person to make a red Santa Claus, like a red suited Santa Claus, but the depiction that you know today of the traditional Santa, that's totally the Haddon depiction from 1931's Coke.
Yeah.
This campaign deeply resonated with the public, helping to standardize Santa's appearance and linking him with Coca-Cola, and also creating a fortune in sales. Because prior to 1931, Christmas was actually dwarfed as a holiday by Easter. People were way more interested in the resurrection than the birth, which kind of makes sense. Like when you think about the miracle. But
well, I mean, every birth's a little miracle, right?
there you go. There you go. So the other thing with Christmas prior to this campaign, gifts were super minimal. My grandmother actually was born in 1923, and she talked about Christmas as a little girl, and they would give out like fruits and nuts and necessities, like they may get a new outfit or something like that, but it wasn't a luxury thing where you got somebody toys or the new whatever it is. So basically what happened there is after seeing Coke, every other company was like, how can we make money off this?
Yeah.
Every other company, every other major company in the United States, well, and really eventually all over the world, began taking advantage of the holiday season to the point, to where we're at today. And now you have Black Friday tacked onto that. And it's pretty much a whole month of buying stuff for people. Like, whether they need it or not. That's how we got Christmas as it is today. And the standardized Santa Claus, thanks to Coke.
I would like to touch on that and throw out a different opinion.
Okay.
That was about the same time they changed their formula from cocaine to not cocaine, and I think they were just down in sales because they had to market to a different group of people.
Well, I mean, it's like what came first, the chicken or the egg? I like to have the original formula for Coke. I think that would be.
I'd like to try it just
Hey,
to say I
Stephen.
had.
Yeah.
Hey, Stephen.
Makes a
just
little.
once.
I have toothaches all the time. I think it'd take care of it.
Yeah, the original Coke probably would.
Yep.
The new Coke, I use it to get rust off of my bumper.
See, that's part of why I don't drink Coke. And I realize probably other carbonated drinks do the same thing, but I have used it to dissolve battery acid and corrosion.
Nice.
So what other Friday feel-good stories do you guys have?
I don't have a feel good. I had one that I had keyed up, but I have lost it. Well, I can tell it without the article. So in Switzerland, but in 2022, I believe it was, they decided to make it illegal, make it to where they couldn't prosecute children for any crime, right?
Okay.
So 14 and under, any crime you commit, no sentence, no anything. So what they've started doing is these gangs have started recruiting these children as assassins.
Oh no.
And apparently, reportedly, these children have murdered whole families.
What?
Let me find the article.
That's definitely not a Friday feel good.
Oh, I'm skipping that. I'm skipping right ahead. So what the children they're focusing on the most, because they're less likely to be known to do this, are little girls and children with disabilities. Let's see if I can find that again.
This just keeps getting worse.
Right.
I might have said the wrong country too. I don't know. I just read it. Here we go. So any child under 15. When I was under 15, I was a maniac. Just to let you know.
I believe you.
Yeah. And this is in Sweden Social Democratic Party passed a new law 2023 made it illegal to arrest, detain, or prosecute a child under 15 for any crime. It also erased all criminal punishments for children. So, as you can imagine, this went pretty raw. Justice Minister Gunnar Stormer is working on getting the legislation to revise and repeal the law, of course, after these people started recruiting them to be assassins. One more alarming story is that some of the children have become contract killers and are carrying out hits all over the country. So,
if there's anything that cartels and everybody else are going to take advantage of stuff like that,
oh yeah. Well,
This,
I mean, what is it over in the Congo that they take these little boys when they're like 5 and 6 years old and start training them to be these big master soldiers and stuff?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, same concept. I mean,
well, this is in Sweden. When you think of Sweden,
yeah.
you don't really think of this.
No,
It's true.
that's where you go to smoke weed legally.
You go to launder money. But
yeah, that too.
apparently, one of the 14-year-old assassins walked a reporter through the hiring process. So this was through text messages seen by the Sunday Telegraph. The little boy announced that he had a handler, a member of the Sweden's Foxtrot gang, sent him tips on how to gain access to the target's apartment block and to avoid getting caught. And in one of them, it says, if the entrance is locked, take a stone and break it. The handler, known as Luis Gucci, tells Fernando, then you do your thing. Afterward, you'll come back to the hood. You'll put Kalavaskanov in the same place. Then go home, shower, and wash your clothes. So they basically tell them what to do and how to do it and things like that. And the kids carry out these horrific crimes.
Interesting.
Wow.
That's crazy. I did want to, since we're skipping straight into,
we can go back to it feel good. I'm fine with going back into feel good.
Well, I had this like kind of in a subsection because there's really not. I mean, it's kind of a gray area still. But last week we did talk about the United Healthcare killer.
Yeah,
and that story has only gotten deeper and deeper and deeper since last week. So if you've not been living behind a rock, you're familiar with what we're talking about. They find him days later, and imagine you decide that you're hungry. You're like, hey, I'm going to go to McDonald's. But before I go to McDonald's, let me put my murder weapon and my manifesto in my pocket and go. So they allegedly found his jacket and backpack after the killing. And they only found the gun, not the silencer, on his person. And think about this. Like, think about how easy guns are to get compared to a silencer. If you were going to keep something and dump something, you would probably dump your gun and keep your silencer.
It came out that it was a 3D printed gun.
I had heard that also.
Yeah.
The gun was 3D printed, or that the silencer was 3D printed?
The whole thing, the whole gun, yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I thought it was initially that one that we were talking about that was like the spy gun, but it's apparently he got a kit. Because you can still get the kits for 3D printing guns. You just have to register them like you register everything else.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, his lawyer is like, I haven't seen any evidence of a crime yet. He's like, all they're saying is that the shell casings match, and that isn't saying a whole lot because it's a really popular caliber.
Yeah.
So here's kind of where I get sideways about it, and I was going to ask your guys' thoughts and the audience thoughts. So think about the largest mass shooting in United States history and how much detail we know about that, which was the Las Vegas shooting.
Yeah.
And think about and think about all of the mass shootings, that are a huge deal. They never say like these kids were assassinated, or these people were assassinated ruthlessly. It's always
tragic.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this guy dies, and it is not only an assassination, but they know every single thing about this guy, to the point where there's articles coming out being like, this guy played violent video games.
Yeah.
And it's like, are you kidding? Like, we don't know anything about the largest mass shooting in United States history other than what they attempted to put out as, the story, which has been deeply conflicted by people who were there. But then, they know everything about it. And, just as well as I do, if they wanted this to go away, they'd have another story. Like the next day, they'd bury it, just like everything else.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's a tragedy. I mean, I understand, the feelings that people have against the healthcare systems and stuff, but anytime that somebody's gunned down in cold blood, it's horrible. You shouldn't.
Wait, we're not condoning it. I'm just saying
it is fishy though how everything's playing out. The kid that did it, Luigi, I forget his last name. He or that they're saying did it. He apparently is a highly intelligent kid, comes from a wealthy family. He's been missing for like the last 4 months or something. Like nobody knew where he was. He had a YouTube channel that had a countdown clock on it. I don't know. It's really strange how all this got set up, and it's just like anything else that happens like this. It's likely to never know the true full story behind it. By all intents and purposes, this Luigi person seemed like they were set up.
There's still a lot of people that don't believe that that's him in the picture too.
Yeah, he was like the valedictorian of his school, like, and all kinds of stuff like that. He wasn't like your typical crazed assassin.
He wasn't that lone person that was, mental health issues and conflicted, and that you always hear, because everybody, that's always my thing is everybody always has to say, oh, well, we always knew there was something that wasn't quite right about him.
Yeah.
There was something easy. So what happened yesterday that had everybody all tore up about this, apparently his charges disappeared in the state system. Like they were initially in there, and then yesterday people were posting videos that they couldn't find the charges anymore. And I don't know whether that's because the lawyer got involved or what the details are there, but nothing else like crazy yesterday that I heard of. But this is
what Easy Mac's talking about though, the December 11th thing. He had a video that said, if you're watching this, I've been arrested. I can't remember the exact quote, but like more to come or something like that, and had the date and stuff like that.
I know that there was another thing I wanted to mention that I thought was kind of funny. There was a governor that came out and was like, in America, we don't kill people in cold blood to resolve policy differences. And then he totally got ratioed on the internet. People post pictures of him. He's literally signing missiles before they go get dropped on other countries.
Yeah.
And he's saying this. I think the reason a lot of people, everybody's kind of coming together on this to be like, there needs to be a change.
Yeah.
And, I think it's because people have silently or even verbally protested a lot of these conditions. People have died, and I think people are just fed up with it. And I don't think there's going to be any consolation on either side for this one, to be honest, like on the side of CEOs or the people.
Right.
Especially considering how fishy the whole situation is with the suspect. It almost seems like a planted situation.
If he was smart enough and things like that, he could make it like look like that, I assume. But I'm always on the realm of conspiracy and like,
for sure.
It seems so crazy, like that. All this is like falling into place for him to be at like.
Well, just like that shooter over the summer that they found next to the theme park who had killed himself and wrote in blood that he didn't want to do it. Yeah. Like when people go missing, like my mind immediately goes to, well, maybe they're getting MK'd or something.
Yeah. The one in Colorado was crazy because you never heard anything else about that.
No.
That was nuts. Like the person went there, had all kinds of ammunition. I'm pretty sure they had explosives. I'm forgetting some of the details, but ended up offing themselves because they didn't want to carry through with it. So that's wild. Yeah. That was a wild one, but you never hear anything about that anymore.
Yeah.
So. Nope.
Yeah. So I guess as more stuff comes up about that, we'll talk about it again.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, I think that's kind of where we're at. Is it's suspicious, and it could go several different ways over the next few weeks, depending on what they actually have on the dude.
Yeah.
I'm reading this Friday Feel Good. That was the other Friday Feel Good. You have to hit this. You absolutely have to hit this one.
So the other the other Friday Feel Good that we have, usually we try to bring happy stuff to lead in with, but I thought this was hilarious. Just the headline alone. The story's actually not hilarious, but the United Kingdom is considering a ban on first cousin marriages.
What?
So an MP has spoken against another MP has spoken against calls to ban first cousin marriage in the UK, suggesting that advanced genetic screening is made available to prospective married couples. I'm just going to say his last name. Muhammad said, while freedom of women must be protected at all times, he did not believe outlawing the practice would be effective or enforceable. And he argued that rather than stigmatizing cousin marriages, a much more positive approach should be adopted to respond to health concerns linked to the children of those relationships. And apparently, okay, so to not laugh, in other countries, especially like sub-Saharan countries, it is normal for far removed extended family members to get married and have children to keep growing, like the clan.
Yeah.
The British royal bloodline is full of genetic diseases because of this practice.
The reason everybody for vampires is because they become someone
right.
If they ban first cousin marriages, the royal family is going to be the first to go.
Yeah.
But so apparently in other countries where this is a common practice, or extremely common, as it's quoted, there are actual laws that when you get married, you have to take a blood test to make sure that you're not too close of a relative because of all of the problems that it's caused in those countries. So, I get where they're coming from, like that maybe there should be a blood test instead of just telling people don't do it.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. It's illegal in Mississippi to marry your first cousin. And I know 2 incidences of first cousin marriages. And the thing about it is they do a blood test in Mississippi. There's a 3-day wait so you can get the results back. But the blood test is for syphilis.
Well, and we're all in Appalachia or extended Appalachia. You know the stigma around Appalachia and cousins, but
I didn't want to go here because it is a stigma, but usually those come with some kind of credence behind them. I went to high school with somebody that married his first cousin. So it happens around here for different reasons than it does like to pertain to bloodline. I had a great uncle one time that tried to explain inbreeding to me because I was like, that's so messed up. He's like, well, if you don't know what a holler is, it's a crevice, it's a valley that people live in. And back in the day, people didn't have a way of getting out of the holler too much. And so the way he said it was, you didn't have to go too far for love. And I always thought that was kind of disgusting.
yeah, that would be an infringement. Easy. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
But what to just play off what Cecil said. So I had family members that worked in the only nursing home in the small Appalachian town that we grew up in, and in the nursing home there were 2 ladies who were births of a first cousin intercourse, and they were both blonde and mute, and could not walk. And they literally laid in bed screaming all day. And it was the most terrifying, terrible thing that you've ever seen. So, and I'm sure that I can speak for the majority of Appalachia when I say that we do not support any cousin marriages.
Well, that's that family that's up. I think it may be Kentucky, but maybe it's West Virginia that has been so inbred over so long that that they're just their mental capacity's gone. I mean, there is none. Some of them can't even communicate verbally because they've been inbred so much.
Yeah. I mean,
and I get, I totally understand the whole, giving, the blood test and everything. That's why a lot of people in Mississippi go next door to Alabama, because there's no wait and no blood test. But, I think that parents need to teach their kids, don't marry your cousin. The family reunion is not where you meet girls.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
hold on a second.
That's what I was going to say. If you're picking up dates at family reunions, please expand your horizons a little bit.
Yeah. See, I told you that wasn't a Friday feel good. The one that I want
it depends on what side you stand on.
Right. I do have one that I dug up for this week. So there was a lawsuit that came out this week that accused major food companies of marketing addictive food to kids. Again,
what?
Imagine that. But major food companies, including Kraft Heinz, Mondelez, and Coke, were hit with a new lawsuit in the United States on Tuesday, accusing them of designing and marketing ultra-processed foods to be addictive to children and to cause chronic disease in all ages. So I actually had the lawsuit pulled up, and here's what I thought was interesting. So this is in the lawsuit. If you search it up, it's you could probably just search lawsuit against Kraft, Heinz, and Coke, and you'll be able to read it for yourself. It's quite a lengthy one, but some parts of it that I thought was interesting. So this says the human genome did not experience a catastrophic failure or paradigmatic shift until the 1980s. Instead, something else happened in the 1980s. Big tobacco took over the American food environment. So if you think about the downfall of cigarettes, like when they were finally starting to say that cigarettes were bad for you, those major companies like Philip Morris, they started buying U.S. food companies ad nauseum, and so did R.J. Reynolds. Because they're like, well, where can we apply the same logic that we use for big tobacco, and it's food. So in the 1980s, Philip Morris bought General Foods and Kraft. R.J. Reynolds purchased Nabisco, Del Monte, KFC, and others. And collectively, they dominated the U.S. food system for decades. During this time, they used their cigarette playbook to fill our food environment with addictive substances that are aggressively marketed to children and minorities. Formulation strategies were guided by the same tobacco company scientists that had the same kind of brain research on sensory perceptions, physiological psychology, and chemical senses that were used to increase the addictiveness of cigarettes. Studies of how electrical messages are transmitted throughout the central nervous systems were used to formulate all of these ultra high processed food products. For example, scientists who supervised human electrode tests on nicotine's addictiveness at a secret Philip Morris laboratory in Germany also regularly consulted with Kraft and General Foods to develop ultra high processed foods. And then in doing so, big tobacco companies intentionally designed processed foods to hack the physiological structures of our brains. And that's just I won't read the whole thing, but I wanted to read some of that out of there because any article that you find isn't going to be that specific. I don't think anybody wants to, because you have to imagine most of your media companies are being paid by these other companies like that we're talking about. They're getting advertising money from these other companies. So they're not going to get on air and start talking trash about somebody who's padding their pockets.
The only thing I want to say about it is I'm just glad to finally realize it's not my fault I'm fat.
There you go. That's
manipulated with these.
Yes.
But reality, just looking at the fact that you can go get, a meal at McDonald's for $4 or $5, not a big meal, but I mean, you can get a burger and fries and a soft drink for $4, but you have to pay $10 for a salad.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
It is so much because, I mean, we've tried to eat healthy. Mm-hmm. We're poor. We can't afford to eat healthy.
A chicken sandwich should not have 74 ingredients.
No.
It
should have chicken flour and maybe a little salt and pepper here.
That's right. And if you're not Cecil, throw a slice of tomato and lettuce on there.
Tomatoes. They should ban tomatoes, except
I love fresh tomatoes.
Yeah.
So that was one thing. And while we're in food and beverages, so the FDA, in all of their wisdom this week, are like, you know what? Maybe we should ban artificial red dye from beverages.
Right.
So there was a big meeting where they were discussing banning artificial dyes. And the FDA, even this week, were like, we don't believe there's any risk to humans, when obviously the European Union does a lot of testing on this kind of thing. And they literally require a warning label with these chemicals to say it may have an adverse effect on activity and attention in children.
I was going to say, that's one of my migraine triggers is red dye.
So the food dyes only serve one function in food, and it's to make them look pretty so that you want to buy it. Another marketing tool. So the problem here is that the FDA, there's no guidance on post-market review of chemicals.
No.
So that's the biggest distinction between the US and Europe, is that Europe has been doing post-market review of chemicals for over 20 years to determine if there are downstream effects. So basically, if the FDA or whatever company that wants to put this stuff in your food or drinks, all they have to do is get the FDA to sign off once, and it may never be reviewed again. It's really the same problem with like the fluoridation that, there's been tons of credible challenges to that in court. It all gets buried because people are like, well, the FDA signed off on it. They signed off on it once, and there's not been the post-market reviews by independent scientists are being discounted. And I think that's what happens in a lot of these cases with the dyes and the other chemicals in our food and drinks, is that all the court has to say is a federal entity said that this is healthy or safe for you, and there's not been any post-market review. And it literally takes an irrefutable amount of evidence, an overwhelming amount of evidence for them to even review or do a post-market review. And I think in this case, the only reason that they're even making this consideration is all of these other countries that has marked these chemicals as literal poison.
Mm-hmm. I was, because I'm not a huge TikTok person, but I was on there earlier, I guess it was last week, and there was a guy that lives up by the Canadian border, and he actually had the exact same cereal, the United States version, and he had gone into Canada and brought some back. And of course, you could see it when he pours it in the bowl. The color difference is huge, And of course, he pulls up the back side of the US version. It's red dye number 30, yada, yada, all this stuff. You turn over the Canadian one and it's beet juice and stuff, it's actual stuff like that. Yep. So he's like, and so he pours 2 bowls. He's got the bottoms marked, and then he does the blindfold, and he does that whole, shuffling them up real good. And he eats some of each one. He goes, okay, that's the American one. And it was totally the Canadian one, because he said it tastes better, yada, yada, yada. So he figured the one with all the additives was going to have the better taste, and it did not.
No, because it's purely just for eyes, like it's for marketing.
It's filler too. Like a lot of our food is just straight filler, full of just trash to keep it on your shelf longer.
What's the same problem? I know everybody listening's heard this, but there's a real problem when you have people paying for cereal to be higher on a food pyramid than meat and eggs and real butter.
Yes.
There's a huge problem with that.
I agree.
And what was it? Our dear friend Stephen has been proving the last few weeks.
He's been doing the carnivore thing, and his blood works great. His blood works awesome.
Yep, it's come back into good ranges, and it was way out was the reason he decided to try it. He feels better. So, I mean, obviously, and, I had a nutritionist tell me, that the wheat that we get today is not the wheat from 100 years ago, that the nutritional value of wheat today is almost non-existent.
Yeah.
So,
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. That was it.
I was going to say, like, people are going to do what they're incentivized to do. And if it's low cost, high production for them to not use beet juice and use chemicals instead, they're going to do that as long as they can get away with it.
Oh, yeah.
And it circle jerks right into the medical system because they're incentivized to have sick people and no cures.
Yes.
And it's the very same concept to treat you. And you hear about all these drugs that get suppressed with these companies that actually work in lieu of something that you would have to pay for the rest of your life.
Right. But I mean, we've discussed it more than once. There is no profit in a cure.
Mm-hmm.
They want to keep you sick. They want to keep you so that you have to keep coming back and coming back and coming back.
Yes.
Because, that's why they're a multi-trillion-dollar industry.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I wonder if there's like some kind of like stigma on certain diseases because like HIV, for example, it was like the going to kill you instantly disease of my childhood. They've cured it now. Pretty much. I wonder what that's about because they've been treating people for years on it, like basically like they do cancer patients. Like,
that was a blip in the news cycle too.
Oh yeah,
they're like, oh, by the way, we just cured AIDS. Like, nobody cares.
Yeah. So I wonder what that's all about. Like, I don't know.
Maybe because the stigma of being gay isn't the same as it was 30 years ago.
That could be.
That very well.
Because I know that they tried to make it the gay disease, back when it first got real big.
I think we talked about this a few weeks ago, but something I keep seeing is China apparently has cured Alzheimer's. And
I know they figured out a cure for diabetes.
I'm 99% sure that they're flaunting the cure for Alzheimer's right now.
Wow. It's always something to do with that diabetes cure because what they were doing, they were taking some kind of cells from one part of the body and basically injecting them into another part to heal itself.
Yeah, I'll double back on that and get some information. I don't know. I'll get it for next week, but I don't know how far gone somebody could be to reverse it. But they're talking about completely reversing Alzheimer's in people.
I'll be so pissed if that gets cured. Like,
well, you have to think like the United States isn't going to take something like that from China, even if they handed it to us.
No. Well, it ain't because I'm looking for like I'm gonna be mad. It's helping people moving forward. I've lost people. You've lost people to that exact disease that could have probably been cured if we would have focused on it properly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there is a cabinet full of cures sitting probably in the patent office right now.
Yeah. I did find an actual Friday feel good if you want to. It's buried in here.
We could talk about the drones in New Jersey, but I mean, let's do that real quick. Every night there's big drones in New Jersey. Like, that's it.
Yeah,
what they are.
Which is crazy. Like we got we got a piece of the congressional hearing talking about that.
Yeah.
And there's one dude earlier in the week that was like, there's actually a mothership from Iran that's sending all these drones onto the East Coast. And
I think we should hold off on it for.
And the Pentagon immediately comes out and says, there is no Iranian mothership. Like you've lost it. But I think I've got like 8 videos. Maybe next week we'll just do UAP UFO.
Yeah, let's do that.
Because I've got at least like 7 to 10 videos of different drones or whatever the Pentagon wants to say, non-human biologic piloted vehicles. We've got like 8 videos we can watch and break down together, and we'll watch that congressional piece and anything that comes out between now and then. Yeah. Last night, there was somebody that said one of them got shot down. And they said that as soon as one went down, 12 more came to where it was at.
Wow.
So there's definitely something going on. And somebody else was like, you know why that ain't happening in West Virginia? So,
Yep.
yeah, maybe next week we can take a break from the cycle unless something crazy happens, and we'll just do a UFO because there's tons of stuff. It's not just New Jersey.
All right. We'll go out on that feel good. What was the feel?
The feel good is that Italian police arrests a nun over links to the mafia.
Okay.
So a nun was among 24 people arrested in northern Italy in connection with a mafia investigation, Italian police have said. She's named in Italian press as Sister Anna Danelli, and she was arrested for allegedly acting as a go-between for the mafia and its jailed gang members. So she was taking messages in. She was their line of communication. They also arrested 2 politicians and seized more than $1.5 million of assets in raids across several towns in Italy. And they said I guess they waited 4 years to arrest her. Like they had been telling her for 4 years just to make sure that she was the communication.
Wow.
It seems like a unnecessarily long time, but they said just in the last year, more than 200 people with mafia ties have been arrested in Italy, totaling more than 2,200 years in jail.
You know, I know it's stereotypical, and I probably shouldn't say it, but I just assume if you're Italian, you're mafia.
Mob connection.
I mean, yeah, that's it. Somebody in your family tree is in the mob. Now, the closeness might vary, but
I like those videos where it shows Sicily and then it shows like just some random place in New Jersey, and they're like, they left this for this.
Right. Do you know how easy it is to buy a castle in Italy right now?
How easy?
They're like all for sale. I mean, they are all for sale. All you have to have is money, and they will. There is one that if I had the money at the time, I'd have bought it. It was an old monastery, and the basement was built on a huge table of quartz crystal.
Wow,
oh, that's cool.
And
that
I'm
is
like,
cool.
I would buy that shit tomorrow if I had $1 million.
I'm
sorry, €1 million.
I wonder if they'll take a 1998 pontoon for one.
They might. There was an entire village for sale too.
Wow, I'd like to buy a village. I'll name it Cecilville.
And on that note,
everybody has to grow beards, like no exception.
Well, I wouldn't be able to go.
Me either.
No.
I could grow a mustache, but not a beard.
No, nobody would be flaunting weak chins then. I guarantee that.
Well, if you're out there watching and you don't already follow us, give us a follow. Our main social media is Twitter. That's where we post show updates. We'll be back next Friday, and we'll do a UAP dedicated episode. We'll show some video, show some congressional stuff, and get pissed off together.
Yep. And if you want to send us any articles you want us to cover throughout the week, you can send it to WITF@gmx.com. I dropped it in the chat right then as well.
I think the chat only goes to YouTube.
Well, you can go to YouTube, check it out. WITF@gmx.com, and you can buy us a coffee over here if you want to. I'm not sure how we get the money yet. So
but you got to be willing to take that. You got to be willing to take the hit on taxes.
Yeah. I mean, while this tax is on $15, not actually fucking break me. And of course, they tonight on Weird Awakenings. What are y'all covering at 8:00 Eastern time?
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts, straight high strangeness. So go on over there and check that out at Weird Realities Network. Come back and join us next week at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And thank you all for watching us because we are watching you.
Peace.
Bye.